Well, welcome back. We're here, back live at ICE Asia Digital Day 3. You didn't expect to see me back here at the end here. We've got a great little session to wrap up for you at the very end. We've got a group of all the anchors from Day 1 and Day 2. That's what we're going to do. We're going to have a nice little anchor wrap session where we go through all of Day 1 and Day 2 and Day 3, and we have a talk about the whole event. We've had a fantastic event. And so without any further ado, let me introduce my three co-anchors from Day 1. Chris Wieners from Osaka. Hi, Chris.
Hey, guys. Good to be back.
See, you've got the mask on there, Chris. You're being very COVID sensible.
I am very COVID sensible right now. No one is getting sick in this place, so we're all good.
Very good. And Chris's co-anchor from Day 1, Joji Kikurio. Hi, Joji.
Yeah, hi, Andrew. Hi, everyone. I just got my government supplied mask today in the mail, so I might be joining Chris real soon.
Oh, very good. And all the way there from Chicago, Illinois, the inimitable, the wonderful Mr. Tom Neiman. Hi, Tom.
Good day, everybody. I am social distancing. I'm a couple thousand miles away from all of you, so with any luck, it'll work.
Very good. So what we're going to do now is we've got about 19 minutes left in the show, and you are the guys that have hung around to the end who are watching now, so that's fantastic. So we thank you for doing that. Most conferences, people slip out to the bar at the end, don't they? But the guys that stay around, they get the gold that goes down in that very last session, so we're going to give that to you now. So just before we move into wrapping up the 3 days, I just had one point I wanted to make about the Korea. We just had the gentleman on from Mohegan Sun. And something that a lot of people say about Korea is, but it's locals only. How can you make money in a locals only environment? But as somebody pointed out to me once, if you right size these things, and the total investment there is less than $1 billion, and you work it back to how many players you need, it is not that much of an ask to make a decent ROI. And perhaps, Joji, that's something we'll get onto when we talk about Japan, about making ROI. So, that's just the one comment I would make about Korea. It's not automatic that a property won't do well just on locals. It all just depends on the amount of investment. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go through 4 themes that I've just made some notes on. The 4 themes are Asian IRs, COVID-19, Japan, and Asian iGaming. And I think every session we had over these 3 days kind of fits into one of those 4 themes. And we're just going to throw it out to the 4 of us assembled here and see how we go. So let's start off on Asian IRs. We had Hoi An is a new property opening up, Inspire. We just had a session on. There's Westside City. Guys, what do you think about the state of the land-based Asian IR industry?
Well, I think it's just exciting, in the sense that there's so many new opportunities, so many new properties coming on board in all of these, jurisdictions. If you look at like the discussions in Vietnam, Hoi An is this massive, I'll say Macau-style property with its own unique value proposition. Again, coming from an ownership, or partnership with Sun City, their ability to tap into the Chinese market is just, it's going to be very interesting to see how that goes down. But then again, you look at some of the other new developments. Again, we just talked about Korea. It's an exciting time, I think, in the Asian gaming landscape. And each of these jurisdictions is completely different, offering, again, completely different value propositions from a destination perspective. So I think it's the absolute most exciting time to be in Asian gaming, where we're right in the thick of it. A lot of people have said, Macau is, sort of going into the sunset with regards to its development. That may be true in terms of the development process, but I think there are so many new and exciting projects on the board right now. It's an exciting time to be here.
Gee, I could wax lyrical about Macau and about how it's not going into the end. That it's got a lot more to come with various phase 2s and phase 3s and phase 4s. But we don't have time for that. Let's move on to COVID-19. We had a lot of talk in the last 3 days about COVID-19, about things like I've made some notes here about regulatory impact, about countermeasures, about how things are going to be when we come back. I mean, and one of the things we can really talk about is the difference between the US experience, what we're seeing there, and what we're seeing in Asia, very different. I mean, Tom, perhaps a few words about what's going on over there.
Well, in the discussions that we had, I was very impressed with how resilient the Asian market is. And when you compare it to the other major markets around the world, it has faced some huge challenges, and every time it has recovered from those challenges. So We haven't had quite those setbacks. Yes, we've had some issues here in the U.S., but with this situation, we had 10 weeks where we were locked down. I mean, there's no greater story than when they closed the Strip, they didn't know how to lock Caesars. There were no locks on the doors. The doors had never been closed. They had to go out and find chains and padlocks. So when you take an engine like Las Vegas and shut it down for 10 weeks, how does it recover? We don't know. We have no experience in doing that. Now, they have popped some properties open, the D downtown, mostly the local properties, the outlying for the drive-in market for the locals. But seeing the Strip come back is going to be an incredible experiment on how do you do that? How do you regain confidence? How do you get on an airplane? How do you travel, stay in a hotel room, and be confident that my health and my safety is the number one priority over profits? So this is a huge experiment that we should watch and watch closely.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like a couple of things that I've been saying on TV interviews and things like that is there's fear factor and there's fun factor, isn't there? I mean, there's fear factor. I don't want to travel. Why do I want to travel now? But as you say, the Asian market's more resilient in that respect, in that the players really want to play in a way that maybe in the West they don't. Then there's also a fun factor. How fun is it to go to a property with plexiglass everywhere and everyone's wearing masks and, you know, so if you're a borderline take it or leave it kind of person, maybe you leave it. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Anyway, we haven't got a lot of time, so let's move on. And we can come back if we get a bit more time. Number 3 on my list of themes there is Japan. And Joji, I thought we'd go straight to you because obviously you are Japanese and you are in Yokohama right now. And we've had a lot of talk about perhaps the Japanese government has, you know, let's be frank, maybe they've messed this up, you know, and Japan is one of the last great global opportunities for development of major IRs, with the possible exception of Brazil one day, I think, and perhaps India many decades into the future. But Japan's where it's all at right now. How do you feel about what the Japanese government have done and the whole entire process?
Well, I'm very happy that you're not asking me about the schedule. That's kind of a topic that's been talked a lot about. The panel itself had a great response. You know, I'll be completely honest with you. I haven't been disappointed with the procedure, and you'll probably think why. But the main reason is because I'm not surprised. There's a lot of cultural differences that take place, even locally and politically. There's a lot of signs about the things that happened beforehand. So that's things like Hokkaido leaving the race, the national schedule not changing now. Those kinds of things, you know, they're just not surprising. And it's interesting that you mentioned I'm in Yokohama because, you know, living here, I'm actually about 15 minutes on foot from the site, just over to the west over there. And, you know, it's quite interesting. The mayor who said that the whole IR idea is a clean slate, as soon as the governor election takes place, all ready to go. You know, all the budgets are approved and we're moving forward. So it's you know, how would you expect the people to react in that front? Especially if you consider seeing all the petition gatherers, all of the you know, anti-casino sentiment beforehand. So again, that's also not surprising. So instead of talking about kind of what the central government needs to do, at least from my front, or what the local government needs to do, I think, at least personally, I think it's more important for the business communities, the local business communities to get ready, because the governments are going to do what they're going to do, and that's, you know, almost completely out of our control. One of the things that I really push for, and people wonder what I actually do here in Japan, is to get the local communities, to get the local businesses ready for what's coming. And it's not all fun and games that we see in the slides from the operators, obviously. You know, there's a lot of points. It's a highly regulated market. There's lots of licensing involved, lots of compliance involved. So, you know, instead of just giving away all the, you know, the fluffy information and all the benefits, it's important for the businesses to look at the advantages, the disadvantages, and then learn about the industry, learn about the business standards, and then the usual, you know, is strategize and then execute. So, I mean, and actually, I'm quite interested. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, it seems to me that there is three quite distinct aspects to this, and maybe Chris, you might want to just briefly jump in as well, because being in Japan as well. There's a political side, there's a commercial side, and there's a public side, and those three seem to be quite different. So the political side, they're just doing what they're doing, and it's kind of ironic. They seem to delay when they didn't need to delay a while back, and now at a time that, well, maybe there are good commercial reasons to delay. Prime Minister Abe is pushing forward and saying they won't delay, so that's kind of funny. Then there's a commercial side, right, where, hey, Las Vegas Sands has dropped out of the race. Okay, maybe it's a tactic, maybe it's not, but people are saying, I can't get ROI in this. I'm sorry, $10 billion with all the rules you put on and how difficult you've made the process. You know, we'd love to be there, but it's just not there. And finally, there's a public side, and maybe Chris, you talk a little bit about the public side. There's a public side where people don't really understand it and they don't want it. But the thing that they don't want is probably not what it is.
Absolutely. We've run, here in combination with several of the prefectural and city governments in Japan, a variety of public consultations and public events. And, the one thing that we hear, one of our largest events was about 1,000 people that attended, and it was all business leaders throughout the community and some general public as well. That was in Sasebo down in Nagasaki Prefecture. But there's still, again, I think this was touched on the panel the other day, there is still a lack of understanding on several aspects of what an IR or a casino is. The word IR, an integrated resort, is still relatively unknown, or at least the definition, the true reality of what an IR stands for, what it means, what it will bring, how it can change, how it can change the economy, how it can change the social standards. A lot of that has not been well promoted domestically. And again, I think it's on the onus of the individual governments as well as on the operators and third parties, Joji, companies that are here. It's on the onus of us to also develop, this understanding, within the public's eye as to what this is really going to mean for them. What is the bottom dollar here? And I don't just mean financially, but in terms of social, et cetera. What is the impact? And, to Joji's point, for the private sector on the commercial side, they look at this as there's this massive new industry coming to town. We're not, this is a very foreign run operation. We're not going to be able to get involved. That's not true. Again, you look at places like Macau, you look at Singapore, you look at any jurisdiction in Asia, and how it impacts the local economy is incredibly important. And, again, prepping these third parties, these, local businesses, business owners, getting them ready for what is going to be ultimately required in this, land of incredibly stringent rules and regulation. That takes a lot of work and effort. So changing public opinion and swaying it is going to take a lot more, I think, than what's currently been done. And there are a lot more parties that need to be involved in that than have currently been so far. And that's, absolutely, there needs to be a major shift in public opinion for this to really gain traction and move forward.
Well, we're just talking about the benefit to SMEs, for example, never mind big conglomerates. You look at Macau, a lot of SMEs are really thriving off the IR industry. And I think pretty much every international bidder or candidate operator in Japan acknowledges that they're not going to have 100% of this. In fact, they're probably not even going to have 50% of this, and they're okay with that. They're going to have a big Japanese conglomerate come in. And but anyway, we could talk about this for hours. We better get on to our fourth point because we've only got about 7 minutes left. So, and the fourth point was just, I wanted to bring up about iGaming. There's been a talk about iGaming, and there was a session on the marriage of iGaming and land-based. And traditionally here in Asia, we've had a big problem with iGaming. We've only got one jurisdiction that allows it, and it's somewhat problematic in some ways with the relationship between China and the Philippines. And we just had a session earlier today with Christina saying about all the AML issues and the junket issues and so forth. But I actually just wanted to, I'm going to ask myself this question, I wanted to have a bit of a talk about junkets, because I think junkets get a really bad rap, and I think that what's going on in the Philippines at the moment, I think they're doing a good job. But you've got to remember, we're taking industry from one that, let's be honest, decades ago at least, there was a criminal element. And Las Vegas was no different. Las Vegas started with a criminal element, and then we moved from a criminal to a corporate. And that took decades. that took many, many steps along the way. And quite frankly, it took waiting for some people to pass away along the way, to be honest. So just because we've made the first steps, and those steps are now shining a light on what's going on. See, 20 years ago, you wouldn't have even known it was going on. Anyone who says it wasn't going on, it was going on. But now it's going on and we know it's going on. Well, that's the first step to fixing it. That's the first step to improvement. So now you've got, I think it's great that people are standing up in the Philippines Parliament and saying, hey, we need to improve this. Yeah, we do. And you didn't even know we needed to improve it until we went this far, where we've gone now with the establishment of the POGOs. I think Madam Domingo has done a great job in the Philippines in trying to do the POGOs. Now they've invented this term no-goes, which is funny, but it's true, right? And I think it's fantastic. So yeah, that's what I was thinking about that. What do you think, Tom? There's a little bit of iGaming starting to creep into the US, right? New Jersey's getting up to nearly $1 billion a year, and it's starting to make a return to the US, right?
Absolutely, the iGaming, the seed has been planted. But the question becomes, we heard it this week in, I forget who was it mentioned, it said that iGaming never will deliver on the social aspect that brick and mortar casinos can deliver. It's a different feel, it's a different culture. And I think there's different segments to the market. Yes, they share a lot of common, but the true hardcore iGaming person is not the guy who's ever going to show up at the front door of a major IR. And I think it's important to recognize that just because they share the concept of gambling, that doesn't make them one and the same. They may be cousins, but they are two different segments.
It's actually interesting. They had the at ICE North America. I saw a session with the regulator. I remember his first name was Dave, but I can't remember his last name. The regulator in New Jersey, and he said there's no cannibalization. There's just none. This was a concern, was about cannibalization, and there you've even had their model of partnering up between iGaming companies. I mean, I think if you were ever to do it in Asia, you would have to do it that way. You would have to take existing land-based companies and then take experienced iGaming companies, presumably from Europe, and have them make marriages and get together in the New Jersey model. That would be the way to do it. But
well, I think the big factor, Andrew, the big factor there is the brick and mortar guys are licensed and have something to lose. So they're not going to, they're going to run it appropriately, legally, and by the law. And that's why I think it gives the regulators a little bit of confidence when I turn to a brick and mortar casino, Wynn, MGM, Sands, and say, as an extension of your license, you now move into the iGaming marketplace and run this accordingly.
You've just had a question, I noticed, from Daniel Long in the questions about more than 50% of the POGO revenues now coming from outside China, and how is the relationship with other markets? Well, I can't specifically answer that question, but I know I'm not hearing about it in the media. I know we're not hearing about problems in the media. So, and we're just about out of time. So this is perhaps something that we could explore a bit later. And it brings me on, Chris, I just wanted to give you 30 seconds on one thing, which was about messaging post-COVID-19. I mean, the operators are going to have to get a good message out to the public to get them back into their properties, aren't they?
Absolutely. Look, from a marketing perspective, everything that we've talked about over the last 3 days, again, very much relevant to what's happened with regards to COVID-19. Operators are going to need to have a strong message, a strong value proposition to be able to fight for what will be this initial flow of customers as they begin to flow through. It's a combination of a destination message that's got to attract the people, especially the mass market, back into the crowd. And it's got to be a highlight of those initiatives and those measures that are being taken in order for them to, again, allow the customers to feel comfortable and confident that the casinos are taking their health and safety seriously.
I saw quite some weeks ago a fantastic WeChat campaign by MGM it was all people in back of house cleaning down bench tops and wiping things down and masks and training sessions. And so I know the operators of Macau have been onto this for weeks and weeks and weeks waiting. And actually, just before we jumped on, I got a message that there's been a relaxation of the border between Macau. There's a press conference going on as we speak in Macau. There's a relaxation between the Guangdong border and Macau border. I don't have details. It's only a partial relaxation, but it looks like we're getting somewhere. Now, we've only got a minute left, so I just need to wrap a few things up. Clarion have asked me to make a few statements at the end here. Well, obviously, thank you, everyone, for being here for the inaugural ICE Asia Digital. Held in collaboration with Sigma. Obviously, Sigma Manila has been having their digital program at the same time. very special thanks to PADCOR, the regulator in the Philippines, and this has been with their endorsement and support, which is fantastic. Thanks to the sponsors, the Digital Week sponsor, Asia Life Tech, and the other key sponsors are BetConstruct. Of course, you can see their lovely purple name behind us everywhere. They're always a major sponsor of these things. FBM Gaming and Wirecard as well, major sponsors. Thanks to the partners that are involved. There are a lot of partners that help out Clarion, not least of all IAG, so I'm thanking myself there. And we've had some great discussions and insights. It's been a fantastic event. We were all expecting to be doing this offline. We're doing it online. So it's been interesting, our first time, and it's been absolutely fantastic. Stay on Swapcard. Do the Swapcard stays open. Use it to do your networking. And finally, I'd like to say, see you all on Thursday and Friday, the 27th and 28th of May, 2021. Hopefully I can see you in person. So that's it from us, and we'll see you all then. Okay, bye for now.